a simple spool of thread. Like our lives, there's a beginning and an end. And in the middle, there is happiness, but also sorrow. There is pleasure, but also pain. There are moments of intense love and times of tragic separation, betrayal, abandonment, when the bonds between us seem broken forever. We hope that's not so. We want something more. The human dream, the universal dream, is a dream of magic and transformation. Oh, when I was 8 years old, I saw a magician perform, and I knew that I was to be a magician.
That was so full in your conscious?
Yeah.
Okay.
But it took me 30-some years to answer the call. Oh, I began with a magic set.
So?
Sure. I think many magicians begin with magic sets.
And it takes you how many times, you say, to work as a professional magician, or?
Well, I became a professional magician when I was 39, 1978.
What kind of magic do you do?
Well, then, for a long time, I did primarily close-up magic. And it was Jeff who convinced me, Jeff McBride convinced me I could do stage magic. And so for the past 10 or 12 years, I've been doing stage magic with him and also alone.
So you're living in Chicago?
Yes.
You're working in Vegas with Jeff?
Yes, I'm in Las Vegas 6 or 8 times a year.
Yeah. And you're not only working in Chicago and Vegas. Where are you working, in fact?
All over the world.
With only magic?
Oh yeah.
With only a patient?
Yeah, deck of cards, some thread.
You use thread? Yeah.
Yellow thread. Well, I think magic is a deep and profound art, and that magicians, certainly American magicians, I don't know about France, I don't live here, but American magicians have trivialized magic, made it unimportant. And I think that is very sad, because magic is a deep and profound art. Well, I do mostly cards. My stage work, though, has a variety of things in it. I try only to do strong, powerful magic. That's my goal. I don't have a B list, only an A list.
Yeah, you do magic.
Yeah.
Which looks like magic.
Yes. I think that is one of my gifts, that I know the difference. Because I think many magicians don't know the difference between something that looks like magic and something that looks like manipulation or boxes or whatever.
During years, you made a lot of work as an historian of magic.
Yes, I mostly in the area of spirit magic, which interested me a great deal. The history of seances, things like that. Yes, I think that knowing the history is important, and it's sad that many people aren't interested. What do I think is success?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's a hard question because there are so many different elements. I think making a sufficient amount of money is success. Doing what is in your heart is another indication of success. Not being afraid, not living in fear is still another element of success. They're all important.
And for you, successful, what it means being successful?
Well, I'm a triple Gemini, and so every week being different is also a sign of success. That every week isn't the same as last week. This week I am in France, next week I will be in London, then I will be home for a week, then I will be in Texas, then I'll be home for 3 weeks, and I will go to California. That's successful to me, being able to live in novelty. Years ago I met the philosopher Alan Watts, about 10 years before he died, 10 days before he died, excuse me. And he said, though I didn't understand it at the time, this was back in the 70s before I became a magician, he said, sensible people get paid for playing. That is the art of life. Since at that time in my life I had a regular job, I did not understand what he meant. But when I became a magician and began earning my living by playing, I understood it completely.
It's a good definition.
Yeah. Sensible people get paid for playing. That is to say, finding something that you utterly love to do. And I think the tragedy of education, both in America and probably here in France, is that we don't spend enough time asking students what they love. We're so busy telling them what requirements they have to fulfill. And you see, in my life, I don't think I was ever asked in school, what do you really love doing? No one bothered to ask me. And it took me till I was 39 to have the courage to do what was in my heart. I think magic has to be deceptive. That's the bottom line. Magic must be deceptive. That's my job. But after we get to that, then the door is open for lots of different things to happen. But we have to be deceptive. That's the requirement.
Yesterday, you talked to us about the 4 pillars in magic. Can you just say a few words about that?
Well, it was a talk about how to create a better performance. And, you know, I think it's strange that in magic we spend so much time on methods. I think many magicians are under the false illusion that all they really need is one perfect magic trick that will make everybody fall on the floor in disbelief. But I don't know if that magic trick exists. There's that little rule, every miracle has its price. And I think that's real. You know, teaching magicians magic tricks is kind of like giving a person in a burning building a book of matches, or giving a drowning man a glass of water. And so the talk I gave here, probably only a minority of people were really interested in it, because they would much rather have me teach them card tricks. But there is something inside me that says, well, you know, as a professional magician, people call me up to do a show. They know what they want. But my job as a professional magician is to let them know what they need. And sometimes what they want is not what they need. An example, very often I'm called and we have a party. Well, there's going to be, it will be Friday evening after work and the spouses will come from the suburbs. And at the beginning we will have a cocktail hour and then we will have a few speeches, just a few. It will only take 10 minutes. That means it'll take an hour. And we'll give a few awards. That'll take about 5 minutes. That's another half hour. And then we would like you to do an hour show. That's what they want. What they need is, after all that, they need a 20, 25-minute show where everyone says, oh, I wish that magician had gone on longer. He was so good. But thank God he didn't, because we have to get home to the babysitter now in the suburbs. My job is to know what people need and not simply cater to what they want. And the same thing, I think, was yesterday. What they wanted was more card tricks. But what they needed to hear, those who want to perform, they needed to talk about more important things. And I think good performances are supported by 4 pillars. 1, practice. 2, rehearsal. 3, having a script. 4, being open to critiques. Being open to improving your magic and not getting stuck in the fact that everything is perfect. Because in this fallen world, to use a religious term, nothing is perfect. There's always room for improvement. In magic, there's always room to build a better mousetrap to catch the minds of our audience. No, I don't think it's only the young generation. I think the old generation has been a hideously bad example to young magicians. And so why should we be surprised that their values are all screwed up? The older generation's values are all screwed up. Welcome to the club, you know? But sometimes I think, Francois, that in any period in history, there have only been a few great magicians. Most have been plotters, you know?
Yeah.
And so why should it be different now?
Same story.
Well, it would be nice if everything were perfect, but it's not going to happen. Well, I think the faces are the faces of humanity, aren't they? I have several versions of the thread trick where the thread is destroyed and put back together again. Probably the one that most magicians know the best is about the creation and destruction of the universe in Hindu mythology. But I have other ones that are much more in line of what you're saying. One of them goes, and you can imagine this happening. You know. When I do this one, I don't use a candle, though. I use a razor blade. And Max Maven made me this little holder for it. So I can just come right down on the razor blade and break the thread. And it starts out, some things may seem simple when they're not simple at all. A simple spool of thread. Like our lives, there's a beginning and an end. And in the middle, there is happiness, but also sorrow. There is pleasure, but also pain. There are moments of intense love and times of tragic separation, betrayal, abandonment, when the bonds between us seem broken forever. We hope that's not so. We want something more. The human dream, the universal dream, is a dream of magic and transformation. So yes, you can touch lots of elements in people with magic. And I think that's, as a magician, my job is to see how I can touch you with words and with magic, with images, and to move you. Now, as Max Maven would say, you know, magicians took this deep and profound art and trivialized it. And we are all living in that trivialization. In one of the workshops that I conducted here, someone said, well, you sit with people, but we could never do that in France because that's just not the way it would be done. And I said, wait a minute. If David Copperfield came into town, you'd be thrilled if he sat with you, and so would your non-magician friends. Because by definition, he's someone very special, isn't he? Well, if you are special, then people will be thrilled to have you sit with them. So why are you not being more special? Why is your highest goal to be like everybody else? And that's the question, isn't it? So I grant that it's probably not a custom in this country for people to sit when they perform, but that just needs one magician to change it. People used to say to me, well, you live in Chicago. It's easy to get a job in a restaurant in Chicago. What are you talking about? Chicago is a metropolitan area of 8 million people. Most people live and die never seeing a magician live anywhere, much less at a restaurant. If there are 10 magicians working in restaurants and there are 8 million people, do the math. No. The job of a magician, in part, is first to deceive the viewer, but secondly, to give the illusion that I am special. Now, how can I do that? Well, the easiest way is to make you feel special. Because the more special I make you feel, the more special you think I am. And so it's this weird paradox, isn't it? Fascinating paradox. But to be special requires courage. To stand in front of a group of people and perform requires courage. It means conquering fear, or at least living in spite of fear. Maybe in spite of are the three magic words of life. In spite of doubt, I have faith. In spite of indifference, I can love. In spite of everything, in spite of all of my fears, I will have courage. And I think that is part of what being a magician and being a human being means. At the beginning, to learn as much technical stuff as you can, and not to worry about presentations. That will come later. Don't worry about a lot of things. Learn as much as you can, read as many different kinds of books. Don't get trapped into videotapes and DVDs. DVDs are great to learn sleights. Look, if you want to learn a shuttle pass with coins, you could read David Roth's book until you could memorize it, but it would not help you with the timing. A DVD will help you with the timing.
Good.
And so DVDs are great for learning sleights, but they are not great for learning routines. Everybody comes out looking like everybody else because the DVD becomes the model. And see, with a book, you have to put some individuality into it. With a DVD, you can just be the little monkey that imitates the other little monkeys. And there are too many monkeys in magic. People whose, as I said, people whose goal is just to be like everybody else. And that is not the path to special, and it isn't even the path to adding zeros to your paycheck. Because the more special you think I am, the more zeros you will put on my paycheck when you write it, right? And that's part of success too, the material part. Jeff McBride inspires me. I love working with him. We have worked now together 20 years. No one has ever raised their voice. There's never been an argument. We have differences of opinion, and that's expected, But there has never been an argument, and there has never been anyone raising their voice. And Jeff and Abby and I spend a great deal of time together. I think what happened with Jeff and me is that we both started out with a real respect for each other. I saw him as one of the great magicians of our time. And he had read some of my books probably and thought I was something special too, I don't know. But he inspires me. Penn and Teller inspire me. They could have stopped creating magic years ago and just lived on what they had already done. And yet within the last year, they've added 4 new pieces to their show. That's wonderful. Johnny Thompson inspires me because of his great knowledge. Lance Burton inspires me, Mac King. These are great magic acts in America. Lance's show was wonderful. It was a classic, beautiful magic show. I think Mac King's work is some of the best comedy magic in the world. Good magic inspires me. But sometimes we learn the most from going to bad magic shows. Because from a bad magic show, I can learn what I don't want. You know, there are 2 ways to discover who you are. There's the way of the sculptor and the way of the potter. The potter works positively. You start with a lump of clay and you keep adding clay and forming it, and hopefully at some point you reach something of great beauty. It's accumulating what the potter does. The sculptor works the other way. The sculptor is a negative path. I start with a block of stone and start chipping away what I don't want. And eventually, hopefully, something of great beauty is produced. Now, I've always found the negative way of greater value than the positive way, particularly when it comes to mysterious questions like, who am I? That's the biggest capital M mystery of all to me. Who am I? So, when I go to a bad magic show and I see a magician bring a person up on stage and use them to make fun of them, to get laughs, I say to myself, I don't want to be that magician. But now, like the sculptor, I'm chipping away at the stone, aren't I? And eventually, if I find out enough things I don't want to be, maybe I will find something of great beauty about myself. So I think there are negative and positive ways to proceed. And for me, as I look at my life, the negative way has always been the most helpful. So go to bad magic shows.